Welcome to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, empowering your real estate investing with techniques, opportunities, and information, minus the BS and sales pitches. Now, please welcome the host of the Investor Empowerment Series, Joe Mueller, from the Tough as Nails Investment Syndicate. Joe Mueller.
So, today on the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, episode number 38, find me a rental deal like this one. We're going to talk about a couple different things. One is, I know last episode I mentioned I would follow up with you guys on the outcome of what my expectations were on that non-performing note. Last we left off in episode number 37, the art of the note deal, talking about a non-performing note that I was able to get under contract and purchase. That one, not much has happened, I'll be honest. As I discussed in the podcast, if you do have more questions or interest, please go back one episode and listen to that podcast about non-performing notes and performing notes and buying them and where to find them and things like that. I was able to close on the note, so it was like a 1 week transition from actually finding out about the note to the point of actually owning the note. Moved it to my servicing company, which, like I mentioned in the podcast, was required. So all that stuff's been taken care of. And I immediately began to reach out to the homeowner because my intention is to hopefully do a deed in lieu of foreclosure with that property. Unfortunately, I have not had much luck doing that. I have not showed up at their personal residence at this point and knocked on the door, but I have reached out via phone a few times. And I also contacted their attorney, which I found out through the investigatory process that they actually had an attorney involved in the case at one point. I've yet to hear back from that attorney just to let them know what my options are for this borrower. So kind of got squat going on there. Also had my attorney, Chris, reach out to the attorney as well to try to see if we can instigate any type of conversation regarding it, because I thought, well, maybe, if they get a call from an actual attorney, they'll respond to it. Nope, nothing yet. So to be honest, my next move is I'm going to send a FedEx with the documentation needed in order to complete the transaction for a deed in lieu to their house and ask them to give me a call so I can explain it to them and offer them some money to do that, which is basically how a deed in lieu works. I don't fully anticipate they're actually going to call me back, but we're going to try. All right, so next up on the docket of topics that we're going to talk about today is this new rental that I helped one of our investors close on actually this past week. I'm not going to give out any names, but for anybody that knows any of the meetup groups that I hold, he does attend those. He has a couple of rentals from before the crash and recently decided he had a life-changing experience at his regular job and decided he needed to have a backup plan. So he decided to get some more rentals. Through that process, he was able to refinance his rental properties to better loans and rates, and then helps out overall cash flow for his entire portfolio that he's continuing to build. So again, not naming names, but one of our local Chicagoan investors. And this is just an example of some of the stuff that's out there. I wanted to go over the deal really quick just to kind of inspire you guys that if you're working with the right type of people, whether it be wholesalers or brokers, you can find great opportunities. So let's go over this deal, which is why this episode is called Find Me a Rental Like This One. So this deal was purchased as an MLS listing. It was a situation where it had previously been a rental property for the previous owner, and they had it rented for many years. I believe the owners owned it for like 20 years. I think the original purchase price was like something really low, like $40,000 or $50,000. This guy sat on the property, rented it out for years, and now this was the time to sell it, which is actually a great move on his part because this is a great market right now to sell in, at least in our area. And I know throughout the country, everyone's seeing gains in property. Chicago is no exception to that. So this was one of the suburbs of Chicago, actually probably about 50, 60 miles away from the actual city itself. And this is a 988 square foot ranch, 3-bedroom, 1-bath with a 1-car attached garage, has a nice yard, single lane driveway, and it's on a crawl. Nothing, too tricky or spectacular about this house. Originally had it under contract for, I believe, $84,000 or $86,000. I can't remember the exact amount. And through the home inspection, the buyer, which is my client, determined that the roof was shot. So thus began the negotiations on how we were going to handle this roof situation, because it was actively leaking into areas of the attic. It wasn't actually penetrating the interior of the home, but it was leaking enough where it was, obvious that it needed to be replaced very quickly after closing this property. That said, we ended up negotiating down a purchase price to $80,000 for this 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in the suburbs of Chicago. And the client did leverage this purchase, so he used financing, which is actually how I got into this topic today. I was going to talk about the fact that the Fed is literally raising rates. They just raised them this week by a quarter point, and they're planning on raising it at least, they're saying anticipated, expectations are they're going to raise 3 more times throughout the rest of 2017. We can't guarantee that's what's actually going to happen, but it seems more than likely they're going to go up at least 1 or 2 more times. So now is the time, people, to get yourself a very well-leveraged, low-interest rate loan for a rental property. Don't miss out on this next couple months before the rates start to go up, because that matters. So let's talk about how this deal plays out on paper, because I think this is the most exciting part about this whole podcast. So the purchase of $80,000, as I stated earlier, the buyer had to come to the table with 20% down. So 20% times $80,000 is $16,000. So that's his down payment, which leaves a loan balance of $64,000. Real quickly, before we even get into the property in any more detail, this loan on its own, the payment is only $343 a month and some change. So we're going to call it $344. That's what the 30-year fixed rate is. That rate is never going to go up. It's never going to change. As long as he doesn't refinance the property or sell it, he's going to have a single payment for this mortgage, $344 a month. Taxes on this property are $3,240, so $3,240 a year. I know some of you are probably falling over in your car seats right now, but that's just the way it works up here in Illinois, which has very high property taxes, one of the major downfalls to investing in this market. So that comes out to $270 per month. So if we add that together with an insurance payment of roughly $750 a year, which breaks down about $63 a month, that total comes to $677 per month in total PITI for the loan on this property, the insurance, and the taxes. That's not bad, at least for Chicago. Again, if we're talking about downstate Missouri or something where rents are only $750 for a house like this, is a big difference. But there's a couple comps in the immediate area of this property right now. We're just going to use a round number for that comp, which is $1,300 a month for what his anticipated rent is going to be, because there's a couple comps right around him. One's at $1,300, one's at $1,400, one's at $1,200. All the houses are very similar. He does plan on making some improvements to the property as well, including that roof. So his total investment on this property, which we discussed, and I can't say this is an absolute at this point because the project's not done yet, but his total investment after he put down the down payment plus the cost of the roof and some miscellaneous repairs is about $7,000 in addition to the $16,000. So we're looking at $23,000 total cash out-of-pocket investment for this $80,000 property, and have it fixed up, lived in, rented, ready to go. So when I run the numbers on that, that's $622 per month in positive cash flow. You guys heard that, right? $600+ per month in positive cash flow. That's an awesome deal for our area. I'm really happy with that. The cash-on-cash return on that is actually 32% return. That's incredible. So real quickly, if you don't know what cash-on-cash return is, and I know we've talked about it before, but I'm going to just define it a little bit better. And let me pull up my Google machine real quick so you guys, I'll read it verbatim so there's no question as to what it is. So the definition in investing of cash-on-cash return is the ratio of annual before-tax cash flow against the total amount of cash invested expressed as a percentage. So if you're going to invest $5,000 into a property and you get a cash flow of $5,000 within that year of the 12 months of, monthly cash flow adds up to $5,000, that would technically be 100% cash on cash return, meaning you've got no money left in that property. That said, this is, again, we're at 32%. So what that means is in roughly 3 years, that initial $23,000 investment is going to be paid back to this investor. I mean, I think that's incredible. It's hard to find numbers like that. Now, some of you are going to ask, well, what about maintenance? What about vacancy? What about repairs? What about property management? Totally great questions. He is going to self-manage this property, which I think is a great idea. He's got a handful of other real estate properties. I mean, he's an intelligent individual. He's able to, research and deal with the right tenants, do background checks, properly screen, and has the legal access to leases and things like that. So in his particular case, I think it's a great idea. If this was property number 21, maybe that's something that needs to be reconsidered. But at this point, he's going to self-manage. I also figured I'd do you another solid and add in an extra 10% of cost, figuring that, okay, maybe he's got a vacancy, maybe he's got a few repairs throughout the year. So I'm just going to jack up that annual cost, or actually minus 10% off that annual cash flow. So if his monthly cash flow is $622 per month, multiply that times 12, that's approximately $7,450 per year of annual cash flow net back to him, right? So we're going to kick another 10% off that for the cost of, maintenance, repairs, and vacancy, which I think is a pretty good number. Obviously, his goal is going to be to turn this property as quickly as possible, get the repairs done, and get it rented out. And then anytime a tenant were to vacate, obviously he's going to try to minimize that time. And one other additional note that we shall consider is the fact that this investor is actually going to be doing the majority of the work himself minus the roof. So the repairs that need to be done in the interior of this property, which are fairly minor, in my opinion, it's like paint and just some touch-up, things like that. He's adding cabinet knobs and handles to the kitchen stuff and a lot of cleaning, things like that. He's doing that work himself, and he's hiring a contractor to complete the work on the roof, which I believe the estimate was about $5,000 or so, but that's the number we're going to use. So again, assuming we're in at a $23,000 cost to him, and we're going to jack 10% off of that we'll call it $7,500 annual net cash flow, that puts us at around $6,700 in annual cash flow. And that's still a 29% return, even adding in, some vacancy and repairs and things of that nature. So just want to explain that deal. I think it's a great opportunity. The property was picked up at a great price, $80,000. The ARV on it as well is anywhere from probably on the low end $115,000 to the high end maybe $130,000. The median probably being around $115,000, $120,000 or so. It's a great deal because he's building in equity right off the get-go. I mean, he's walking into essentially $30-some thousand in equity the day he bought the property. Great deal. I'd love to say that this is, an everyday experience for us out here with Tanis and the properties we work with and our investors that we find, or I said that backwards, but the investors we work with and the properties we find, it can be. It just depends on having that right motivation. You got to be ready to move. You got to have your financing lined up if you're an investor, and you got to be ready to pull the trigger. There was some cloudy moments even for this investor, and I had to re-explain to him the fact that you're picking this property up at a great price. Yes, it needs some work. Some unexpected things came up, but in the end, this is going to be a great cash flow rental and a great addition to his portfolio. So again, this is 32, we'll call it a 30% cash on cash return on average. I mean, I think that's incredible. If you're looking for more properties like this, please feel free to contact us at Tanis. You can reach out to me, Joe at TanisGroupLLC.com. A little bit more about the deal. One of the things we utilize just for a quick check is like Trulia.com for the crime mapping. This is an area that is all green. The last time the police actually were contacted and responded within a half mile of this property was back in August of 2016 for a traffic ticket. I think that's awesome. So it's a safe area. It's a family-oriented area. It's a nice area. it's a great opportunity for this investor, and we can find more like this. So whether it's going to be him or whether it's going to be you, the listener, feel free to reach out to us. And the last segment of this podcast actually is going to be another quick little talk. One of the things he brought to my attention yesterday, we actually closed, today's Saturday, March 18th, I think. He actually closed on the property on the 16th. So 2 days ago, he was at the property the next day, working on it. And on his way back, he stopped at one of these local stores we have here called Restore. These stores are affiliated with Habitat for Humanity, and they're a location where investors, contractors, builders, even homeowners can go to and donate building materials that maybe is left over on a project or they can't return at their big box store for whatever reason, or maybe even it's a used product. Like you can bring appliances, you can actually bring in a used toilet, you can bring in an exterior door. I can't tell you what they're going to give you as far as a charitable write-off or pay you for those items. I'm not even sure how it works because I've never donated there. But what was able to do was spend a few $100s to pick up some of the things he needed, and it even sounds like a few things he didn't need. But the stuff was so cheap, it was a great opportunity. I believe he bought a front, he said high-quality, high-grade fiberglass front exterior door for $50 or $75. He said it was used, but it was like brand new condition. He picked up a cast iron bathtub for $50 that I'm sure of. He gave me that number, which in the store is like a $300 item. He said literally the thing's wrapped like brand new. So somebody just dropped it off, donated it, whatever, took a charitable donation right off. And this store, which is called Restore, Restore, which there are several of in our area, again, owned or ran by the charitable organization Habitat for Humanity. We've got several. I know we at least have 3 or 4 in our area. I know we have one in Elgin, Woodstock, and McHenry. There's probably a couple more throughout. I don't know exactly where they're at, but these opportunities are out there for you guys to maybe check in at some of these places, save some money on materials, or help somebody else out by donating donating some of your leftover materials that you may not need in the future or, have no use for anymore, whether it's even used or brand new. And yes, I'm not joking. You can buy a used toilet there. Pretty awesome. No idea what it costs, and I don't know if I would actually do that, but I know you can do it. So I kept this one pretty quick. This is Investor Empowerment Series Radio Show, episode number 38. Find me a rental like this one. And special thanks to our investor who closed on this property this week and gave me the inspiration to actually talk about this podcast. If you're looking for similar deals like this, please contact me, contact my company directly. You can shoot me an email. You can call our main number. We'll help you find something that can meet your needs. And that's Joe at TanisGroupLLC.com. And again, rate me on iTunes, people. Please help me out. Help me out. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Investor Empowerment Series Radio Show. Be sure to tune in next week for another empowering episode. We welcome your feedback, so please rate us on iTunes and Stitcher, and visit us at www.investoремpowermentchicago.com or TanisGroupRealty.com.